I spent years sleeping in full armor, metaphorically, of course, but the tension in my jaw and the vigilance in my eyes were very real. I told myself I was a warrior of light, constantly battling unseen forces, breaking generational curses, and fending off spiritual attacks. I thought I was fighting the good fight until I realized I was just fighting myself. Have you ever felt that? That constant, low-grade hum of anxiety that you've been told is spiritual sensitivity or warfare? You leave the dogmatic religion that told you you were a sinner, only to walk into a spiritual framework that tells you you're a target. You realize the game is exactly the same. Only the name of the enemy has changed. Today, we need to have a very direct and perhaps uncomfortable conversation about spiritual warfare. Whether you come from a fundamentalist background where you were rebuking demons or a New Age circle where you are constantly shielding yourself from low vibrations and energy vampires. The mechanism is identical. We are taught that our suffering is an external attack. We are taught that life is a battleground, and most dangerously, we are taught that peace is something we have to fight for. But what if I told you that what you call a spiritual attack is actually a biological response? What if the demons aren't in the astral realm, but are unintegrated fragments of your own psyche screaming to be heard? So many of us are waking up to this strange and frustrating pattern. We trade the fear of hell for the fear of attachments. We trade the judgment of God for the judgment of the universe. It is the same logic of shame, just wrapped in a prettier package. In this video, we are going to deconstruct the dogma of spiritual warfare. We're going to look at why the warrior identity is actually a trauma response, and how to reframe these terrifying experiences as psychological and somatic awakening dynamics. We are going to put down the sword so we can finally heal the nervous system that's holding it. First, we have to look at the seduction of the narrative. Why do we love the idea of spiritual warfare? Why is it so addictive to believe we are under attack? It appeals to a very specific part of our ego, the need to be chosen. If you are constantly under attack by dark forces, by the devil, or by the matrix, it implies that you are incredibly important. The enemy wouldn't waste resources on a nobody, right? The narrative of warfare gives your suffering a grand cosmic meaning. You aren't just depressed, you are a target because of your great light. You aren't just anxious, you are sensing the shifting of the ages. This is the us versus them mentality taken to a metaphysical extreme. It validates the feeling of isolation many of us grew up with. It tells us you don't fit in because you are a warrior in a world of sheep. But here is the hard truth I had to face. This narrative is a cage. It traps you in a state of hypervigilance. When you identify as a warrior, you subconsciously require a war to justify your existence. If the war stops, who are you? I remember the moment the exhaustion finally hit me. I realized that the armor of God or the psychic shield of white light wasn't protection, it was dissociation. I wasn't protected, I was numb. I was walling myself off from the world and calling it holiness. The warrior identity is often a cover for a deep, unhealed wound of powerlessness. We adopt the posture of the fighter because the terrified child inside us doesn't feel safe enough to simply be. And as long as we are fighting out there, we never have to tend to the terrified child in here. Now, let's get into the mechanics of this. What is actually happening when you feel a spiritual attack? You know the feeling, the sudden crushing weight in the chest, the intrusive, dark thoughts that don't feel like your own, the feeling of doom, the waking up at 3 a.m. in a cold sweat, In the dogma of warfare, these are arrows of the enemy. They are open doors to demonic influence. But through the lens of psychology and somatic experiencing, this is classic nervous system dysregulation. This is a flashback. When you have a history of trauma, and let's be honest, if you were raised in a high control religion, you have complex trauma, your nervous system is wired for threat detection, you are constantly scanning for danger. When your body enters a fight or flight state, sympathetic activation, or a freeze state, dorsal vagal shutdown, your physiology changes drastically. Your heart races, your gut clenches, and your prefrontal cortex, the logical, rational part of your brain, goes offline. When the rational brain goes offline, the mind tries to make sense of the intense physical sensations. The mind is a meaning-making machine. If your body feels terrified, your mind will look for a reason to be terrified. If your framework is spiritual warfare, your mind will instantly provide a narrative. I am being attacked. Those intrusive thoughts aren't demons whispering in your ear. They are the result of high cortisol levels and a brain stuck in a survival loop. That heaviness isn't a spirit sitting on your chest. It is the somatic contraction of grief or terror that has been repressed for decades. By labeling these biological states as spiritual attacks, we actually make them worse. We add a layer of metaphysical fear on top of biological fear. We try to pray it away or rebuke it, which is just another form of resisting the sensation. And what we resist persists. Third, and this might be the hardest pill to swallow, is the concept of the shadow. In spiritual warfare, the bad is always external. It is Satan, it is the entity, it is the negative vibe. We are taught to cast it out, bind it, and send it away. But Carl Jung and nearly every depth psychologist since would tell us that these demons are often projected parts of our own psyche. They are the parts of ourselves we were told were unacceptable. Think about it. If you grew up in a religion that told you anger was a sin, where did your anger go? It didn't disappear. It went into the shadow. Eventually, that repressed anger builds up so much pressure that it erupts. But because you identify as a good person or a light worker, you cannot own that anger. So you experience it as an external force attacking you. I'm not angry, a spirit of rage is attacking me. Do you see the trap? It's a brilliant defense mechanism. It allows you to maintain your self-image as pure and righteous while disowning your own humanity. I did this for years. Every time I felt a surge of doubt or carnal desire, I declared it was the enemy. I went to war with my own biology. I went to war with my own mind. Reframing this is terrifying because it forces us to take radical responsibility. It means the monster isn't under the bed. The monster is the parts of yourself you have starved of love. True awakening isn't about defeating the darkness. It's about recognizing that the darkness is just your own shadow, asking to be integrated. It's not a war, it's a reclamation. So, if we stop fighting, what do? If we put down the sword, won't we be overtaken? This is the great fear. But the opposite is true. The antidote to spiritual warfare is somatic safety. It is teaching your nervous system that it is safe to be in your body, here and now. When you feel that familiar attack coming on, the anxiety, the heaviness, instead of reaching for your holy oil or your sage, try this. Pause. Notice the sensation without the story. Drop the label, attack. Drop the label demon. Just feel the energy. Is it hot? Is it cold? Is it tight? Say to yourself, I am feeling a sensation of fear right now, and that is okay. I am safe in this moment. This disrupts the loop. You stop feeding the fear with more fear. You begin to befriend the sensation. You treat your dysregulated nervous system not like a battlefield, but like a crying child. You don't bring a sword to a crying child. You bring presence. You bring breath. You realize that you don't need to protect yourself from your own feelings. You need to feel them. Leaving the dogma of spiritual warfare is one of the most liberating things you can do. It allows you to retire from a war that never existed. It allows you to look at your anxiety, your depression, and your intrusive thoughts not as evidence of your spiritual weakness or your cosmic importance, but as signals from a body that is desperately trying to heal. You are not a soldier, you are a human being, and you are allowed to rest. I've shared a bit of my story, and now I'd love to hear yours. What battles have you been fighting that might actually just be your own nervous system asking for peace? Share your experience in the comments below. Your story might just be the key that helps someone else put down their sword.